Well, we've come to the end of the Southeast Missourian Christmas tournament, Rachel. It's been a great 4 days of the tournament.
Yes.
First, Charleston wins another title. Was that a surprise at all?
Well, no, not really. I mean, they were the #1 seed for a reason. They've had a really great start to the year, and it looks like they're, if not the favorite, one of the favorites in the whole for their state title this year. So, no, not a big surprise. I think something I mentioned last night stood out to me again tonight. Under control the whole game. Seemed like they were in control of the game, even when it wasn't that big of a lead. You know, the game was going as they wanted it to. They were calmly talking to each other, not panicking in any situation, just march to this tournament like a top seed should. So, congratulations to them, obviously.
Absolutely. It even seemed in the fourth quarter there when Notre Dame tried to make a run, Charleston still, it was just cool and calm and collected. It seemed like they knew what they were doing, that they'd been in tough situations before, and they handled the pressure very well too.
Right. I mean, this might be the second biggest championship game of a tournament they've played in all year. I mean, on this stage, it's hard to think of, but the fact that they played Sykeston, for the Semoball Conference title already this year, I think helps them. A big game, they've already had that experience. So yeah, every time they would get to within like 8 points, it'd be 10, 8 points.
Right.
You're like, wow, this is only a 10 or 8 point game.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, it'd be a 3 or a 2 or a drive inside and a 3-point play. So just took what could be an interesting game that fourth quarter and made it boring, which is what you want if you're a Charleston fan.
Sure. Rachel, were there any surprises today? It seemed like there really weren't any real close games. Leopold stuck with Jackson for a while. That was probably the closest game of the day. Were there any surprises today?
Chaffee came out and took care of business again. You kind of didn't know I kind of didn't know what I was going to get. I would have picked Chaffee to win. I think I did pick Chaffee to win, but to me, they came out and really, from the start to the finish, took care of things. We've seen them start slow earlier in this tournament, have to come back on teams. Today, from the beginning, they really had their game. And then Alex Crow, 31 points today, right? So
yes.
Big prime performance from the senior. Leopold, like you said, stuck with Jackson. They led after 3 quarters, believe it or not, ended up getting 21-3, I think it was in the fourth quarter. So I don't know if there's any surprise in there, but I think that's Jackson, I think, had a really good tournament. I think a lot of people were down on Jackson coming in. They ended up finishing 5th, which is where they were seated, but I think that they beat all the teams they were supposed to beat, and maybe more. So I think that they had a really good tournament.
I think that the third place game was an interesting game, and that it took a little bit for Central to kind of get a feel for Scott County Central. It took maybe half of a quarter, and then they realized, hey, we can play with these guys and we're going to be okay. And they started to gain a little bit of separation in the second quarter, and as the game went on, they really were able to pull away by going inside and taking advantage. And that's really Scott County's biggest weakness right now. They have no height, and that's not going to change.
Right. Yeah, so I think the interesting thing that was, I forgot the halftime score now. Was it 41 or something? I didn't know if Central could keep that pace up. It was 23 all after first quarter, 41 points at halftime. I thought, well, what's this fourth quarter going to look like? But it turns out Central was the team that ended up pulling away in the third and fourth quarters, which I think is really impressive for them, because while they had the height advantages and while they have all this stuff working for them, it's like, can Scott County Central wear them down if they're going to try to play this? Now, it wasn't quite as high scoring in the second half, but you never really saw that from Central. You never really saw them getting tired or anything like that. So, and that's going to be Scott County Central's challenge, And I said, if it was any other Class 1 team, we'd be talking about this great performance, making it to the semifinals for a Class 1 team. They were the 3-time defending champions. We all know all about them. So it's hard to kind of keep it in perspective. They gave Class 5 Cape Central all they wanted for most of the game today. So, they have a good season ahead of them, Scott County Central. So I don't know what's going to hold at the end of their year, but as far as both teams tonight, Central and Drew Church have to be happy with that, I would think, with that performance. So we'll see. I'm sure he'll find something to pick on, but coaches always do. But yeah, I thought it went well for them.
Absolutely, Rachel. The all-tournament team came out, 10 very deserving players.
Uh-huh.
However, if you had to pick the biggest snub, who would you say was the one person that deserved to be on there that maybe didn't earn a spot on there?
Well, we were talking about this in the chat during the games. I think thought you were going to ask the biggest surprise, but the biggest, I guess, biggest snub. Well, Notre Dame only got one player on, so there's probably the thing is after Nathan Weiss said it gets a little even out. Joe Siebert was certainly Cody Heiser. Who am I forgetting? The guard, Jonathan Lynch. Yeah. Certainly all in the discussion, I would think, for having great tournaments, but just not quite didn't quite make the team. On the other side, Greg Brawley only got to play 3 days for Delta, and I think it's always hard when you're playing 3 days, especially on the losers bracket, to make it. But I think he'll end up having the highest per game average of the tournament, probably. Still among the top 10 scorers for the tournament, despite only playing 3 days. And he wasn't jacking up shot. He played really well. And then the other one is, I think some people thought Cody Moore also same boat, three days for Oran. Had a game which he made 9 3-pointers.
Yes.
Is that right? So, so those two, you could also point to the one that didn't end up making it, Lane Blue, who played 3 days for Advance, but it's on the winners bracket side.
Right.
He played really well, so he got his spot. So there's only 10 spots, and that's one thing I was saying before is that a lot of times you'll watch 8-team tournaments, and they'll have 10 players. This is
Right.
16 teams, 10 players.
Right.
If you think about
Right.
that, I mean, we're talking super, select here. So there's always going to be somebody left off. It's just
Sure.
the way it is.
So who's your one? You gotta pick one.
My one?
Your
Well,
one,
I mean, I'll
Rachel?
go with Brawley.
All right, Brawley.
I don't know.
I'll say Cody Moore.
Okay.
I don't want to say the same, so
That's fine, that's
there,
fine.
the two kids got a little bit of a shout out.
Okay.
Let's wrap, Rachel, as we wrap up the Southeast Missourian Christmas tournament, what's the one thing that's going to stand out about this tournament?
Well, I know everybody loves a good underdog, but I tend to be just as impressed by teams that do what they're supposed to do. And Charleston this year was supposed to come in and win this tournament, and they did. And I think there's something to be said for that. When you're the top seed, when you're the hunted one, when you're the one everybody sort of has planned for and has been thinking about, And they've already played Notre Dame this year too.
Right.
So they're going to have to beat them again, And so, and like I said, they've played big games. And they have bigger games to come. This tournament fits into their schedule differently than it fits into a lot of other people's. And so at the end of the day, the fact they came in here, took care of their business, didn't really, even when they were challenged by Scott City and
Right.
by tonight when they were challenged by Notre Dame, cool, calm champions, So they're well-deserved of this title, and I think big things for their season coming up.
Absolutely. That's going to do it for us here from the Show Me Center and the Southeast Missourian Christmas Tournament. Thanks for joining us here on Semoball.com. We appreciate all your support. If you want to check out photos, blogs, forum posts, everything, it's right here on Semoball.com. Thanks a lot and have a good day.